The palace of the Villani Empire stood like a mountain of crystal and light. It rose above the golden clouds of the alien world, touching the purple sky with its many towers. Inside its walls, thousands of servants, nobles, and guards moved through their daily work. Among them was a human man named Tae-Wu. He had served in the royal palace for 3 years. In all that time, he never spoke unless someone spoke to him first. He never smiled. He never laughed at jokes or complained about the long hours. The other guards, both human and alien, called him the Stone. They said his heart was made of ice, and his face was carved from rock. Tae-Wu did not care what they called him. He stood at his post each day. He watched. He waited. He protected. That was enough. Humans had come to the stars only 20 years ago. When Earth made contact with the Villani Empire, everything changed. The Villani were tall beings with silver skin and eyes like pools of liquid gold. They lived for hundreds of years and ruled 40 star systems. They welcomed humans into their society, finding them useful for their strength and loyalty. Many humans left Earth to find work among the stars. Some became traders. Some became engineers. Many, like Tae-Wu, became soldiers and guards. The pay was good, and the Villani treated them fairly. Tae-Wu had arrived on the Villani homeworld after the Earth-Villani trade accord. He was one of thousands seeking a new life. But unlike the others who dreamed of returning home someday, Tae-Wu moved like a man with no home to return to. He carried an invisible weight on his shoulders. His eyes held a sadness that he could not explain, even to himself. The ruler of the empire was Queen Lyris. She sat on a throne made of blue crystal. Her silver hair flowed like water down her back. The Villani people loved her. She was wise and fair and strong, but there was a shadow over her heart that never lifted. 12 years ago, her husband, Prince Korin, had disappeared. He had gone on a peace mission to the Outer Reach, a dangerous region at the edge of known space. His ship was found drifting empty among the stars. There was no sign of struggle, no sign of escape, no sign of Korin at all. He had simply vanished. The queen had mourned him. She had cried until she had no more tears. Then she had dried her eyes and continued to rule. She never remarried. She never took another companion. Some said she was still waiting for Korin to return. Others said she had simply given up on love. Tae-Wu had seen the queen many times from his post. He thought she was beautiful in a way that made his chest feel tight, but he never stared. He never let his eyes linger. He was just a guard. She was the ruler of 40 star systems. The distance between them was greater than the space between stars. One evening, the palace held a great ceremony. Noble families from across the empire came to pay respect to the queen. The grand hall was filled with light and music. Servants carried trays of food and drink. The air smelled of flowers from a dozen different worlds. Tae-Wu stood near the wall, watching everything with his cold, steady eyes. A young Villani noble stood in the center of the hall. He was drunk on expensive wine and feeling bold. When a servant accidentally bumped his arm, spilling a few drops of drink on his sleeve, the noble's face twisted with anger. "You stupid creature," he shouted. The hall fell silent. Everyone turned to look. "Do you know how much this coat costs?" "More than your entire worthless life." Ah! The servant was a small alien from a conquered world. She trembled and fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness. Tears ran down her face. The noble raised his hand to strike her. Everyone watched. No one moved. The other nobles looked away, embarrassed but unwilling to interfere. The guards stayed at their posts. It was not their place to act against a noble. But Tae-Wu moved. He stepped forward from the wall. He walked across the hall with calm, steady steps. Before the noble's hand could fall, Tae-Wu was there. He stood between the noble and the servant, his body blocking the blow. "Step aside, human," the noble hissed. "This is not your concern." Tae-Wu did not move. He did not speak. He simply looked at the noble with eyes that held no fear. For a moment, his face changed. The stone mask cracked. An expression crossed his features, righteous anger mixed with gentle protection. It was the look of someone who could not stand to see the weak suffer. someone who would sacrifice himself to protect others. The noble stepped back, suddenly afraid. He muttered something about humans not knowing their place and walked away. Tae-woo helped the servant to her feet. His expression softened as he looked at her. "You are safe now," he said quietly. Then the mask returned, and he walked back to his post. On her crystal throne, Queen Lyris had not moved. But her hands gripped the armrest so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her golden eyes were wide. Her heart was beating so fast she could barely breathe. That expression, that exact expression on the human's face. She had seen it 1,000 times before. She had loved it. She had kissed it. She had mourned it for 12 years. It was the expression her husband Corin always wore when he protected someone weaker than himself. Impossible. It was impossible. Humans and Villani were completely different species. There was no connection between this common soldier and her lost prince. It had to be a coincidence. Her grief was playing tricks on her mind, but she could not look away from the human guard who had returned to his post by the wall. She could not stop her heart from racing. She could not stop the tears that formed in her eyes, for the first time in 12 years. Queen Lyris felt something she had forgotten. Hope Queen Lyris could not sleep that night. She lay in her bed of soft silk, staring at the ceiling of her royal chamber. The stars shone through the crystal walls, filling the room with pale light. But she saw nothing, except the face of the human guard. She told herself it was nothing. A trick of memory. A desperate heart seeing patterns that did not exist. Her husband was dead. He had been dead for 12 years. No power in the universe could bring him back. But when she closed her eyes, she saw that expression again. The tilt of his head, the softness in his eyes, the way he had stood so calmly between the noble and the servant, ready to take any blow meant for someone weaker. Corin had been the same way. In a palace full of proud warriors and powerful nobles, he had been the gentle one. He had never raised his voice. He had never used his strength to hurt. He had only ever used it to protect. When morning came, the queen called for the recordings of the ceremony. Every event in the palace was recorded for security. She sat alone in her chamber and watched the moment again and again. She slowed it down. She zoomed in on the human's face. She studied every tiny movement of his muscles. It was not just the expression. It was everything. The way he tilted his head when he listened, the way his hands rested at his sides, not clenched in fists, but open and relaxed. The way he walked with quiet confidence, as if he had nothing to prove to anyone. These were small things, tiny details that no one else would notice. But the queen had spent 5 years married to Corin. She knew every movement of his body, every habit of his soul. And this human stranger moved exactly the same way. She called for Captain Daeho, the leader of the human guard unit. He was a strong man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had served in the palace for 10 years and was trusted by everyone. "I want the file of the guard named Tae-woo," the queen said. "Everything you have." Captain Daeho looked surprised, but he did not ask questions. He returned within the hour with a thin folder. The queen read it carefully. Tae-woo had been born in a coastal city on Earth called Busan. His parents died when he was 12 years old. He had raised his younger sister Hannah alone, working any job he could find to keep them fed. At 18, he joined the military. At 25, he volunteered for off-world service. His record was clean. His evaluations were good. There was nothing unusual about him at all, except for one thing. 2 years were missing from his record. Between the ages of 23 and 25, there was only a single note: medical leave classified. The queen felt her heart beat faster. 2 years. Hidden. Secret. What had happened to this man during that time? She made a decision that surprised even herself. She would speak to him, face to face, alone. That evening, she summoned Tae-woo to her private chambers. He came dressed in his guard uniform, his face showing nothing. He stood before her throne and bowed in the proper way. His movements were correct and respectful, but his eyes remained empty, like windows into a dark room. "You protected that servant last night?" the queen said. Why? Because it was right, Your Majesty, Taewoo answered. His voice was deep but gentle. It sent a shiver down her spine. Many guards would not have acted. They would have stayed at their posts and watched. Then they would have been wrong, Your Majesty. Such simple words. Such clear belief. Corrin had spoken the same way. He had never complicated things with politics or protocol. Right was right. Wrong was wrong. That was all that mattered. The Queen leaned forward on her throne. Have we met before, human? Something flickered in Taewoo's eyes. Just for a moment. A shadow of confusion. A hint of something lost. No, Your Majesty. I would remember meeting you, would you? You are not someone a person could forget. It was not flattery. It was simply truth, spoken without thought. And it was exactly the kind of thing Corrin would have said. The Queen stood up from her throne. She walked down the steps until she stood directly in front of Taewoo. She was taller than him, as all Vellani were taller than humans. But he did not seem small to her. He seemed solid, real, like a rock in a stormy sea. There are 2 years missing from your record, she said quietly. What happened during that time? Taewoo's face showed true emotion for the first time. Confusion, pain, fear. I do not know, Your Majesty. You do not know. I remember nothing from those years. I was told I was found drifting in space, alone on a broken station. I was dying. They saved my life, but my memories were gone. The doctor said it was trauma. My mind protecting itself from something terrible. The Queen's heart was pounding now. Where were you found? A place called Sector 7G, in the outer reach. The world seemed to stop. The air grew thick. The Queen could not breathe. Sector 7G, the outer reach, the same region where Corrin's empty ship had been discovered 12 years ago. Your Majesty? Taewoo's voice was worried. Are you unwell? The Queen forced herself to breathe. She stepped back and returned to her throne. Her hands were shaking. Her mind was racing with impossible thoughts. You may go, she said, but you will remain assigned to my personal guard from now on. I want you close. Taewoo bowed and left. He did not understand why the Queen looked so frightened. He did not understand why his own heart was beating so fast. Something was happening to him. Something he could not explain. And deep inside his mind, in a place he could not reach, something old and lost began to wake up. The days passed, and rumors spread through the palace like fire. Everyone noticed that the Queen had taken a special interest in the human guard. He now stood outside her chambers every night. He walked beside her during ceremonies. He was always close, always watching. Captain Daeho grew worried. He had known the Queen for many years. He had seen her mourn her husband. He had seen her become cold and distant from the world. Now she was changing again, and he did not understand why. Some nobles whispered that the Queen had taken a human lover. Others said she was planning something darker. The palace was full of secrets and lies, and everyone wanted to know the truth. But Queen Lyris cared nothing for gossip. She needed answers. She contacted Earth's government through official channels. She demanded access to THWO's classified medical records. The humans refused at first. They said the information was private. They said it was a matter of security. The Queen did not give up. She offered trade agreements. She offered technology. She offered things that the humans could not refuse. After 3 weeks of negotiation, a single file arrived at the palace. It was thin. Only 2 pages. But those 2 pages changed everything. The file said that Taewoo had been found floating in space aboard an unidentified vessel. The vessel matched no known design from any species. It had simply appeared in Sector 7G, drifting without power. When rescue ships arrived, they found only Taewoo inside, barely alive. He had been in a coma for 6 months. When he woke up, he remembered nothing. His brain showed strange patterns that the doctors could not explain. Neural pathways that should not exist in a human mind. Signals that followed no known logic. The doctors decided he was stable enough for duty. They sealed his records and let him return to service. They did not know what had happened to him. They did not want to know. The queen read the file again and again. Her hands trembled as she held the pages. Sector 7G. An unknown vessel. Strange neural patterns. 2 years of lost memory. She needed help. She needed someone who understood the old ways. The ancient knowledge that most Villani had forgotten. She summoned High Priest Moran. He was the oldest Villani in the Empire. His silver skin had turned almost white with age. His golden eyes were clouded but still sharp. He had served 3 rulers before Lyris. He knew secrets that no one else remembered. He arrived at the queen's chambers late at night. He moved slowly, leaning on a staff of twisted crystal. But his mind was as quick as ever. The queen told him everything. She showed him the recordings of Taewoo. She gave him the medical file. She described the expression she had seen, expression that belonged to her dead husband. High Priest Morin listened in silence. When she finished, he sat very still for a long time. "There is a legend," he said at last. His voice was like dry leaves blowing in the wind. "From before the Empire, before our people traveled the stars, our ancestors believed that consciousness, the thing that makes us who we are, could survive beyond the body." "You mean ghosts?" the queen asked. "Something different." Morin closed his eyes, remembering words from ancient texts. They believed that in moments of great love or great sacrifice, a soul could reach out. It could anchor itself to another vessel, like a drowning man grabbing a rope. The queen felt cold. "You are saying Corin's soul could have entered this human?" "Not entered. Not possessed. Impressed." Morin opened his eyes and looked at her, like a handprint in wet clay. "The original remains. The clay is still clay. But something new is added. Something that was not there before? Is such a thing possible? I do not know. Our ancestors believed many things that we have forgotten. But the outer reach is a strange place. The rules that govern normal space do not always apply there. Things exist in that darkness that we do not understand." The queen thought about everything she had seen. Taewoo's expressions. His movements. His 2 lost years in the same region where Corin had vanished. The strange neural patterns that the human doctors could not explain. "If this is true," she said slowly, "how would we know for certain? How would we prove it? There is only one way. We would need to look inside his mind. We would need to find what is hidden beneath the surface." Morin paused. "But there is someone who might help us. Someone who knows this human better than anyone." "Who?" "His sister. The file says she is a xenobiologist, a scientist who studies alien life. If anyone can help us find the truth, it is her." The queen made her decision quickly. She would bring Hannah to the palace. She would tell her everything. Together, they would discover what had happened to Taewoo in those lost years, and if Corin was truly inside him, if some part of her husband had survived all this time, she would find a way to reach him, even if it meant crossing the barrier between life and death itself. That night, she sent a message to Earth. It was addressed to Hannah Taewoo's younger sister. It contained 3 simple words: "Your brother needs you." Hannah arrived at the palace 1 week later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a fierce spirit. When she walked into the throne room, she did not bow or show fear. She looked directly at the queen and demanded to know what was happening to her brother. The queen liked her immediately. This woman had raised Taewoo alone. She had fought and struggled to keep him safe. She deserved the truth, so the queen told her everything. The expression she had seen, the missing years, the strange neural patterns, the ancient legend of souls that could survive beyond death. Hannah listened without speaking. Her face showed many emotions: confusion, fear, disbelief, but she did not laugh. She did not say the queen was crazy. "He has been different since he came back," Hannah finally said. Her voice was quiet. "I noticed it right away. He was always serious, but after those 2 years he became empty, like part of him was missing. Or maybe like part of him was hiding. Sometimes he speaks in his sleep. Words I cannot understand. Sounds that do not belong to any human language." Hannah looked at the queen with wet eyes. I recorded them once. I showed them to language experts. They could not identify the sounds. The Queen's heart nearly stopped. Can you show me these recordings? Hannah took out a small device and played the audio. The room filled with soft, strange sounds. They rose and fell like music. They followed patterns that were beautiful and sad. Queen Lyris began to cry. She knew those sounds. She had heard them 1,000 times. They were Vallani lullabies, the songs that mothers sang to their children at night. They were the songs Corin used to sing to her when she could not sleep. What is it? Hannah asked. What is he saying? They are lullabies, the Queen whispered. Songs from my world. Songs that no human should know. The two women looked at each other. They were from different worlds, different species. But in that moment, they understood each other perfectly. They were both fighting for someone they loved. We need to look inside his mind, Hannah said. We need to find what is hidden. Explained everything to Taewoo. He sat in the Queen's chamber and listened to the recordings of himself speaking Vallani in his sleep. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. I do not remember any of this, he said. I do not know these words. But something inside you does, the Queen said gently. Will you let us try to find it? Taewoo was afraid. He could see it in his eyes. But he nodded slowly. If there is something inside me, I want to know what it is. They brought in the best doctors from both Earth and the Vallani Empire. They used machines that could read the deepest parts of the brain. They scanned and measured and analyzed for hours. What they found was impossible, woven into. Twee's neural pathways were threads of something else, something that did not belong to a human brain. The patterns were Vallani, the same structure, the same rhythm. They were layered beneath his own consciousness like a second voice singing under the first. It is not replacing him, the lead doctor explained. His own mind is intact. But there is another presence sharing the space, like two rivers flowing together. Hannah grabbed her brother's hand. Tears were streaming down her face. He is still himself? He is still my brother? Yes. He is still everything he was. But he is also something more. High Priest Moran stepped forward. We can try to reach the hidden presence. There are old techniques, meditation, focused thought. It will not be easy. It may be painful. But it is possible. Taewoo looked at the Queen. For a moment, something shifted in his eyes. Something looked out at her that was not quite Taewoo. I want to try, he said. They prepared a small room deep in the palace. No light, no sound, only darkness and silence. Taewoo sat in the center of the room. The Queen sat across from him. High Priest Moran guided them through the ancient words, the old techniques. Minutes passed, then hours. Tae-Woo, single quotes, his breathing slowed. His face relaxed. The stone mask fell away completely for the first time, and then his eyes opened. They were still human eyes, brown and ordinary. But the way they looked at the Queen was not ordinary at all. There was recognition in them. There was love. There was 12 years of longing and loss and hope. Lyris, he whispered. But he did not speak in the human language. He spoke in perfect Vallani. I am sorry it took me so long to find my way back to you. The Queen could not breathe, could not think, could not do anything except stare at the face of a human stranger who was looking at her the way only one person had ever looked at her. Corin? She whispered, yes. Tears began to fall from Taewoo's eyes, but they were not Taewoo's tears. Yes, my love, I am here. I have always been here, waiting for you to find me. In the darkness of that small room, the Queen reached out and touched his face. Her silver fingers traced the human features that held her husband's soul, and for the first time in 12 years, she was not alone. The truth came slowly, like water filling a cup. It took many sessions in the dark room, many hours of meditation and memory, but piece by piece, the story emerged. 12 years ago, Prince Corin's ship had been traveling through the outer reach on a mission of peace. They were trying to make contact with species that lived in the darkness between stars. It was dangerous work. Corin believed it was necessary. They never reached their destination. Something found them first. A creature of pure energy. A being that existed only as light and thought. It was ancient and hungry. It fed on consciousness on the minds of living things. The creature attacked the ship. It consumed the crew one by one. Corin watched his friends disappear, their bodies falling empty as their minds were devoured. He was the last one left. In his final moments, Corin did something desperate, something that should have been impossible. Using techniques that High Priest Morin had taught him long ago, he pushed his consciousness out of his body. He sent his mind flying through space like a bird escaping a cage. He searched for any vessel that could hold him. Any mind that could carry his soul. He found Tae-Wu. The human soldier was dying alone on an abandoned station. His ship had crashed there months ago. His crew was dead. His supplies were gone. He lay on the cold floor, waiting for the end. Two dying men, separated by thousands of light years. Connected by a moment of desperate hope, Corin's consciousness touched Tae-Wu's mind and held on. The human's body was strong enough to survive. His mind was kind enough to welcome a stranger. They merged together like two flames becoming one. For 2 years, they drifted in that empty station. Corin's ship eventually found its way there, drawn by some strange force. When rescue teams finally arrived, they found only Tae-Wu, a human man with no memory and strange patterns in his brain. Corin had not meant to hide. He had not meant to sleep. But the merging had been too much. His consciousness had sunk deep into Tae-Wu's mind, becoming buried beneath layers of human thought and memory. He had become like a dream that Tae-Wu could not quite remember until the Queen looked at him and stirred something awake. "I tried to reach you," Corin said through Tae-Wu's lips. "Every day, I tried to rise to the surface, but I was too deep. I could only send small pieces of myself through, expressions, movements, habits. I hoped someone would notice." "I noticed," the Queen said. She was crying. They were all crying, the Queen, Hannah, even Captain Daeho, who stood guard at the door. "I never meant to take his life from him," Corin continued. "When I reached out that day, I was not looking to steal a body. I was just trying to survive. And he accepted me. He welcomed me. Even dying, even scared, he opened his mind and let me in." Hannah squeezed her brother's hand. He would do that. He always helped everyone, even strangers. There was a moment of silence. Then Tae-Wu's expression shifted. The softness faded. The human came back, fully present, fully himself. "I can hear him now," Tae-Wu said in his own voice. "I can feel him inside me. He is not an invader. He is not a parasite." He looked at his sister. "He is like a brother, closer than a brother. He saved my life. Without him, I would have died alone on that station. And without you, I would have been consumed by the creature." Corin's voice came through. "We saved each other." The Queen did not know what to feel. Joy and grief mixed together in her heart. She had found her husband, but he was not the same. He could never be the same. He shared a body with another man. He looked through human eyes. He spoke through human lips. But he was alive. After 12 years of mourning, he was alive. "What happens now?" Hannah asked. "Can they be separated? Can Corin get his own body back?" High Priest Moran shook his head slowly. "They have been merged for too long. Their consciousnesses have grown together, like two trees whose roots have intertwined. To separate them now would destroy them both." Tae-Wu nodded. He did not seem sad. "I do not want to be separated. Corin is part of me now, part of who I am. I am a better man because of him. And I am still myself because of Tae-Wu," Corin said. His strength, his kindness, his human stubbornness. Small smile crossed the human face. "I would not want to lose that." The Queen stood up. She walked to Tae-Wu and took his hands in hers. She looked into his human eyes and saw both men looking back at her. "Then stay," she said. "Both of you, stay with me." In the years that followed, the galaxy told many stories about the human guard who stood beside the Vellani Queen. Some said she had taken a human lover. Others said she had found a reincarnation of her dead husband. The truth was stranger than any story. Tae-woo remained in the palace. He served as the queen's personal guard and closest companion. Some days, he was fully human, quiet and steady and strong. Other days, Corin would rise to the surface, and the queen would spend hours talking with her husband about the years they had lost. Hannah visited often. She loved both versions of her brother. She studied the merging of their minds and wrote papers that changed how humans understood consciousness. Her work opened doors between species, showing that souls could bridge any gap. Captain Daeho never spoke of what he had witnessed, but he smiled more often. He had served the queen for many years. He was glad she had finally found peace. And Queen Lyris. She ruled her empire with wisdom and strength. But now there was warmth in her eyes that had been missing for 12 years. She laughed again. She sang the old lullabies. She loved two men who shared one heart. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder was simple. Love could survive anything. Death, distance, the emptiness between stars. It could find a way to continue. Even when all hope seemed lost, Tae-woo stood at his post outside the queen's chambers, watching the purple sky through the crystal walls. Inside his mind, Corin watched two souls. One body. One love, and for the first time in either of their lives, neither of them was alone.